Last year, the government paid me $4,500 to build 10 Beaver Dam Analogs on my desert ranch. We had a lot of rain this year, 50% above average, which is going to let us answer the question, did these work, and answer something much more important. Are they worth the time and the money? We're going to start here where the access is best. And it's not fun because it's pretty steep, but I can get a truck down right here on the dam where it's easy to unload materials. And if you're trying to build something here, it's not too bad with getting all the material where you want it. Oh, well, we just discovered a big problem. That needs rocks immediately. Okay, I'm glad we're going on the tour. While we're talking about access, I don't live at the ranch full time. I don't know exactly how many rain events this thing endured, but there's a couple of signs that tell me we have improved the environment and we're going to increase the amount of vegetation over time. The first evidence is you can see this layer of silt that has built up. These are fine particles that have washed down here from the dam and from the surrounding hillsides. That is going to increase the amount of water that is available in the soil because the pore sizes are a lot smaller. But some of it doesn't require a genius to figure out. You can look at this plant and see how green and vigorous it is. All of this ground cover that you see is trailing 4 o'clock. It was bright green last month, but as the weather is cooling and we've reached close to freezing temperatures, it's going, well, it's not dormant, it's an annual, it's dying. But you can see how healthy and green the grass is right here. Very, very good sign. Even as the grass on the hillside, you can compare the difference. It's all oxidized and gray, whereas this one is green and actively growing. Same here. The one thing I am worried about is how the water went through the dam, and it looks like it went over the top here without doing any major damage, which is excellent. This particular dam bore the brunt of the flow, but as we walk downstream, you're going to see how they cooperate and they reinforce each other. You can see a cattle trail that we've kind of reinforced from hauling materials down here. Actually, I don't know if y'all can tell or not. But there is a path. And you can imagine that as you're carrying those metal T-posts and especially the willow branches, which have to be hand carried in here, it gets a little more uncomfortable as you go further downstream. And although I'm not excited to see trash in my dam, it is an example of it working, that stuff flows downstream. Look at all of this sediment that's been trapped here. This is almost certainly from that washout that I had on the dam, that this finer material has settled out and it's burying the gravel, which is great because now instead of rocks, you have sand that can hold water. But I'll pick this up on my way back. Let's look at the vegetation. There's a reasonable comparison. So you have that creosote right there, and it looks yellow-green, whereas right here, this one is super bright and verdant. And for an idea of how much the water impacts things, that creosote that you're looking at in the center of the screen, it's yellow-green. This creosote is bright green. Hardly a surprise because water backs up behind this and fills. This is grama grass, which has a fairly shallow root system. Even if you have this section of the dam building up, these won't have roots deep enough to really benefit from this other than immediately after a flood. Whereas this sneezeweed, which is right on the bank, you can see how green it is. It's absolutely thriving from the buildup of water. What I should have done walking down here, though, is look at the check dams. You see how we have some organized piles of rocks, which some are much better organized than others. Before we continue, that is the first BDA that we started our tour at. That's the second one. But what I want you to notice is the check dam and how it's doing in the middle. So here, all this required was stacking rocks. And as you can probably tell from the nearby soil, we're not lacking for rocks. These are relatively easy to gather. They're very easy to stack. And you can see how even after it's probably had a dozen flood events, it's holding up great. And under there, I'll try to stick the camera down there for a better view. You can see organic matter piling up in the riverbed. Well, riverbed is a really ambitious term. Let's just call it the wash. See, that's all duff and organic matter that's built up right where the water is concentrated. And this is Satol, which has very spiky thorns, and I had to climb in here to get that shot. And it takes a while to untangle myself from the thorns. I hope you found that useful. 3 years ago, I bought this 320 acres of barren Texas desert for the grand total of $247 an acre. My crazy ambition, build a desert forest. Every solution to build a desert forest costs a fortune. So when the government offered to pay me to build Beaver Dam Analogs, structures that slow water and green the land in the process, I was not going to turn that down. It's a chance to advance the mission without draining my bank account. We get paid by the linear foot for building these. 10 dams, $4,500. It works out to about $450 a dam. Because it was so difficult to get materials to where we need them, we did not make any money building these things. It cost us almost exactly what the government paid. This one looks amazing, and you can really see the high level here. In fact, I think this one even broke the channel a little bit, and let's walk over without stepping on the growth. This one was very successful. I was able to get the water up out of the channel and establish an extended growing area. I think the best evidence for that are those little yellow flowers growing. Because as soon as you get outside this area, same soil, no flowers. 2 years ago, I started working with NRCS, which is a federal government agency tasked with preserving soils across the United States, and that was developed in the aftermath of the Dust Bowl and the Great Depression. My experience so far has been great. I received my grant under a program called EQIP, but that has involved a lot of trips involving government officials to my ranch. Originally, it started with a survey where they walked the property with me looking for opportunities and programs that I might qualify for. After I received the grant and installed all of the BDAs, they came back out to investigate the work. And as you can see from them literally measuring the BDAs, that is how I was paid, is how many linear feet of BDAs did I install, and did I install them according to the specifications. That being the shape and method. I know it drives people nuts having a U pointing downstream. That's how the government told me to build it, and if they're the ones paying, that's what I'm going to do. The other important element is all of that organic material in the dams. The idea is that when a BDA soaks up water and there's organic material nearby to absorb it, the water stays around much longer. That feeds soil biology, and whenever the plants, just like that trash you saw earlier, wash into the BDAs, they're in a wet spot with a lot of organic matter and soil life. Over time, over a long period of time, life will thrive, and that advances my desert forest mission. And I think, if memory serves me correctly, we'll have a couple more check dams in between this one and the next. As we climb out of BDA number 3 and we head over down the stream, found a problem that I'm going to take the time to fix, which is one of these check dams. So a BDA takes about 12 or 15 hours to build because of how much we're moving material. It's all the organic matter that takes so much time and money. With these check dams, I didn't build this one correctly, which is hardly a surprise because this was the very first set of check dams that I ever built in my life. But they're also not that hard to repair if you mess up. Even when they fail, they provide some benefits. You can see this organic material gathered here. There's little sticks over here, and the sediment is eventually starting to fill the gaps. Obviously, the water's running here, and I want to help slow it down as much as possible. So very carefully, so that I don't get a scorpion bite or worse. Just gonna fix this really quickly, and we'll get a similar amount of benefit fill the gap. And then here, want this protecting the bank. We'll put a couple of other stones that I've gathered back here to reinforce that work. All right. We could do a better job, but that's 90% of the repair and about 10% of the time. I work hard to protect the land, but I never thought about protecting myself. When I searched for my name online, I found old phone numbers, old addresses, even information about family members on random websites that I'd never even visited. That is when I turned to Incogni. They handle the heavy lifting, contacting data brokers to make sure that your information is deleted. After I signed up, I started seeing those records disappear after just a few days. Those data brokers profit off your information, and they fuel junk mail, robocalls, even identity theft. But you can take that power back. Go to incogni.com/DUSTUPS and use the code DUSTUPS to get 60% off of the annual plan. Just sign up, give permission for Incogni to work for you, and then they will handle all the hard work. It's fast, affordable, and it feels great knowing that you're finally off the radar, online and offline. And now, back to the episode. As we get to dam number 9 and 10, you'll be able to compare the difference in the labor required to maintain these things. And then you can make a decision for yourself. What should I really be focusing on in this context? Should I be focusing on check dams and the rocks? Or should I be using the BDAs where I'm piling up organic matter too? And while I'm being transparent with you, showing my failures, I would like to highlight something that is a success, even though this doesn't even match what a check dam should look like. Okay, this one has also probably broken down, and even though it was imperfectly built, what you can see is this line of gravel and sediment that has built up behind the dam. So even if you're not a proficient builder and you have no experience building check dams, in about 15 minutes, you can make something that's backed up several feet of soil over, well, it's been 3 rainy seasons, but only 2 of them actually had rain. So this is how much sediment has built up in just 2 rainy seasons. And what that's accomplishing is it's spread the water this way. It's a way to give more space to the desert for more vegetation to grow. And one comment I've seen, not just on my BDA episodes, but on really any DUSTUPS episode, is a small minority feels like it's a waste of time to be out here trying to build a desert forest. What most people don't appreciate is that I get the same average rainfall as Los Angeles. This ranch gets 12 to 14 inches of average annual rainfall. LA gets 14.5. The only difference is that my rainfall is actually more consistent. LA can have horrible, horrible years where they get 3 inches of rain, and then in exceptional wet years, they can get 37 inches. This ranch does not experience that kind of variability. Our lows are about the same as LA, but our extremes are much less extreme. In a wet year, we might get 20 or 25 inches. Unfortunately, I'm in a very, very remote area. There's no urban record that really reflects what's here. But what you see is a steeper bell curve. The variability of the rain around DUSTUPS is actually more consistent than something like LA, which There's a reason Southern California and Orange County is named Orange County, because it's a desert that happens to be warmer than here, where if you just add water, you get amazing growth. There's plenty of other factors too, like soil, but I'm not the least bit concerned 3 years in about the viability of my idea. It's more timeline and cost. Here's another small check dam that we made, and I guarantee you this grass was not here when we built it. So a really not great check dam because there wasn't a good availability of larger stones, but even still we raised the level of the bank and it caught enough water to support this kind of growth in the channel. Green? Well, actually outside of the bank on the east facing side there is some green. It's definitely browner. That one's greener. There's another check dam where you get a similar benefit of the organic matters building up, and you can see it's doing its job. And down here we're still catching lots and lots of fines. I see a mix of organic material in the bed, scattered rock, and I don't know if I can say with all sincerity that it's noticeably greener right by check dams or BDAs. So I will defer to your judgment. What I can say is there's a ton of organic material, well, not a ton. Relatively speaking, for a desert, there is a lot of organic matter that's being caught down here. Whereas with the BDAs, we have to go down into our canyon, sometimes even further, chop all of these, and then carry them by hand, along with all those T-posts and the tools that we need to build these things. So this certainly catches more green. I think it's fair to credit this green ephedra and some of the green grama growing within it to the work of this BDA. You can see it's held intact, and it clearly spread water up to at least there before it started breaking through the dam and getting through. But these things are designed to blow out. It's okay if they're not watertight, just like the check dams. That's the end of the check dams. So from here on out, we're only looking at BDAs. But I did want to show you this other channel. I think we have one over here. Yeah. This is a totally separate channel, and there aren't any check dams of note over there. Well, if there are, I didn't build them. I know I've had a volunteer that built it, but this one looks absolutely incredible. You can see that the structure of the dam is held. Lots of organic matter. It's nice and gray down there. And what isn't gray is either green plant growth or it's fine sediment, or even cardboard, which is totally okay. I added these safety caps because viewers in the first episodes were worried about me or people impaling themselves, but boy, these things do not do well in the sun. This is nasty. I don't know if you can see the glint on my fingers. It's gross. Down here, I think I'll have to get out of the channel. Look at all, see the moths and butterflies. Love all the color out here. This one looks like it might be the best in terms of growth. Oh, I think the Socotillo died. Oh, it's got some life in it, but is this alive? No. I'll put that in the channel. Look at all that. So it's not green anymore because the trailing 4 o'clock, which is this stuff, has all died. It's done growing this year. But what I've seen around the cave hole is that this stuff tends to spread where the water line is, or where the water is traveling underground. So this gives us a pretty good marker that this BDA has extended the bank probably 4 or 5 feet where the water's traveling underground. It's a really good sign. The rest of the BDAs down this channel are performing similarly. There's no damage and they have a similar amount of growth to what you've just seen. Now I'll take you to camp where yesterday I repaired one of these dams, and now that you know the time and effort required to build them, I want you to be able to judge the effort required to repair them. Running a YouTube channel, I've been amused at how strong people's opinions are with different water harvesting structures, whether they're Beaver Dam Analogs or check dams or real dams or ponds, and it goes on and on. But the one thing that I've never heard discussed much and that really should be talked about is access. Walking to do the work in the middle of nowhere takes an inordinate amount of time, and if you have to go to the bathroom and you forgot toilet paper or you forgot a tool, which is going to happen, those things add up, and it can literally add an hour to your work just by walking back and forth. But today I was able to drive most of the way to the work site because of this swale we built, which is a water harvesting structure. And while I wouldn't describe this as amazing access, it's a lot better than walking a quarter mile back and forth between camp every time I need to get down here. But the work site's just right there. Parking only 40 or 50 yards away from where I'm going to work, and I need a lot of hand tools, and there's inevitably going to be some back and forth. It saves a lot of time, and it makes it a lot easier for me to come out here and fix things, because ideally I would have fixed it as soon as it was damaged, but we have a lot of to-dos. All right. Or packing out trash that this stuff collects. I don't know if that rainbow shows up, but this is a great morning to be out here doing manual labor. The weather is perfect. It rained last night very, very lightly. I think we got 0.03 inches, but it's so nice to be out here. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is, if I put just more dirt down here, it's just gonna wash away. So it'll be much more effective if I plug as much of this hole as possible with rocks, because it's the one thing I have in abundance, and I don't have to really worry about the water coming down here blowing it out. So first, rocks. Man, I wish I could put these smells on camera. The flowers and the sneezeweed, it smells so good. Every time I'm out here, everything smells amazing. Okay, this is a big part of why this takes so long. We're not bringing a dump trailer down here, and it doesn't make sense to collect rocks somewhere else just to carry them down the hill, because there's no way I'm getting a bulldozer, or, well, I mean, I could get a bulldozer down here if I really wanted to, but I'm not getting a dump trailer down here. I'm not getting a wheelbarrow down here, not without an enormous amount of work. So instead, I'm scavenging for rocks. because it's the quickest, easiest thing that the water's unlikely to move. Well, hey, this is one thing that I don't know if we can take credit for or not, but there's cow dung here. Apparently, the cows found this inviting enough to contribute some organic matter, right where we're contributing organic matter. This is clearly several months old because it's completely dried out. Well, not completely, but mostly dried out. At least it's not fully oxidized. And if you're watching and you're worried about rattlesnakes or anything like that, it's November. They're all asleep right now. There we go. Okay, now, where I don't have anything growing anyway, I'm gonna make a pile, screen it, thank you to the viewer that sent me this. I unfortunately don't remember who, but I do remember it was a donation. A common misconception with these things is to make them watertight, and that is not the goal, not even close. All we're trying to do is slow flood water. Although when we go on the tour, I will show you one that that actually did appear to seal or mostly seal. I'm not opposed to it, but it's not the goal. And the reason is evaporation. We lose up to 8 feet per year of surface water. So building a pond out here, in my opinion, is a dumb idea unless you're gonna make it really, really, really deep. And there's no way a beaver dam is gonna be 20 feet deep. I really thought I would need these tools. You notice I'm getting different levels of sediment, that I'm starting with the big stuff, and then I got some coarse gravel, and now I'm getting this fine gravel. And some of it will wash through, but also some of it will plug up. So hopefully this will be the end of the maintenance on this thing. The good thing about this fine gravel is it's an outstanding mulch. Obviously, organic mulch would be better, but water can travel through this, but it's not getting so much heat that it bakes whatever moisture is under it. Okay, we gotta fill that too. And I'm just gonna add some mass. I thought I'd be digging, but I'm just gonna add some mass to the bottom over there so it's a little thicker. In the time since this BDA busted from a 10-inch rain event that dropped almost 3 inches of water, we've added that mega swale that I drove here on, and the amount of water that can flood through here quickly has massively diminished. So I think the chances of this thing washing out again are much lower. There is always a number where that can happen. Miguel, who visited the ranch a couple months ago, and he's got a project in Chihuahua on the Mexican side, right next to Big Bend, where you can literally see the Chizos Mountains. He was telling me he had a 7-inch rain event in a couple of hours. So there is a number where we get devastating floods, but I think for most scenarios, this will hold. If I was describing a normal dam, hoping it holds is not a real strategy, but for a Beaver Dam analog, it's designed to blow out. It's an acceptable outcome. So I believe this repair, knowing the amount of water that we're saving uphill, is okay. Could I do better? Sure, but we have so many projects going on that there is a point where you got to think about the payoff with all of this work. The government paid me about $450 to build this one little structure. And it cost me about $450 to build by the time I paid labor to have it built. That swale I drove on, and I about fell out of my chair when I realized what I've spent on it, I think it cost me $16,000. We're gonna put in about 160 hours worth of work to make it happen. And by the time I pay Daniel and the bulldozer and all the repairs that go with putting that much time on equipment, I think that's probably about what it costs to make. However, we should think about dollars per gallon. I know that swale caught at least 500,000 gallons this year. We'll do the math and put it on screen, but per hour of work, that's a lot of water. Here, what does this hold? Maybe 100 gallons? I haven't run the actual numbers, but I suspect that for scale and time and efficiency, the bulldozer is way better. And oh, by the way, I also get a road for my effort. Whereas here, eventually this is gonna turn into a beautiful green clump, which is great. I am building a desert forest. It would be nice to build a desert forest that I can access. I started at the second BDA, but the one above it also blew out. Let's go take a look, and I'll show you how it performed. It's not as impressive as the second one. I noticed there was a ton of green growth that I should have discussed. But we only have about a 30-second walk to get to the BDA. And thankfully, there's a cattle trail through here. So the access is pretty simple. But not for equipment, just for people or animals. And outside the wash. But you can see the BDA over there. And I think on this one, the growth isn't nearly as impressive, which kind of makes sense because it lasted one rain event and blew out. So I wouldn't expect to have jaw-dropping results. Look at all those sparrows. They're not going to be happy. You know, this actually looks pretty good. There's, let's see how much credit I can take for the effort though. Because Upstream, where my work wouldn't have affected anything, there's a lot of trailing 4 o'clock right here on the riverbanks. That's what most of this now dead annual vegetation is showing. And these grasses all look thick through here. I don't know, maybe we get a little extra credit for this point, but I wouldn't describe it as like, wow, look at what my work did. Unfortunately, the effort didn't pay off on this one. It was just too much water too fast. It's designed to blow out. It blew out. That's disappointing, but I think it's unlikely to happen to the rest of this stuff. For my context, is building Beaver Dam Analogs the best use of time? In my opinion, no. That doesn't mean that I think they're a waste of time. I just think for budget and time and impact considerations, there are better opportunities. Check dams, if you don't have heavy equipment, would be the best fit for DUSTUPS because there's so many large stones, it's easy to gather enough material to trap some sediment and make a difference. But I happen to have a bulldozer. For the amount of time and money required, me using the bulldozer is the most impactful thing because per hour and per dollar, I can capture more water with a bulldozer than I can by hand moving rocks. And certainly by going through the canyon and chopping desert willow and then hauling it to this remote location over very difficult terrain and then driving the T-posts. The BDAs have a context where it makes sense to focus on them as the primary strategy. DUSTUPS, that's not the case. We have a 2-year contract with the government. I think we have another 5 left to build. They're larger than the ones that we've already done. They're worth doing, and I signed a contract. I'm going to honor my commitment, but I'm not super enthusiastic about building the BDAs just because I know there's other things that we can be doing. What makes it worth my time is the fact that the government's paying me to do it. I suspect that's not a popular opinion, but this whole channel is about learning on camera and sharing my experiences building a desert forest. It's really important to me that I tell you what I think without any self-censorship. A little bit of background goes a long way. Dive into the episode where we actually build these BDAs. You'll get a better sense for the terrain, the difficulty, and the expense for making them in a desert setting.